Perfect. Welcome, everybody. For the sake of time, and those that are on time, we'll go ahead and get started.
John Burrow once said, "A man can fail many times, but he isn't a failure until he begins to blame somebody else." Despite these wise words, we are in the age of Trump and Brexit. Therefore, let's start to point fingers.
Most all American expats have had many negative ramifications from the Foreign Account Tax Compliancy Act, also known as FATCA. In fact, it might have led to the closing of your brokerage account in the United States, or even your non-US bank telling you to go elsewhere.
So it's Obama's fault, right?
Not exactly. When you follow along with FATCA brought about, it's really introduced ways that American expats could get caught while not declaring taxes, owning PFICs, or even not declaring taxes that were owed.
So if Obama just built a means to catch non-compliant individuals, why did everything change for expats in 2010?
Well, rules from past presidents started to be enforced. Ronald Reagan, beloved president that was in favor of cutting taxes, added a huge tax to American expats with foreign investments with the introduction of PFIC rules, also known as passive foreign investment companies. These were designed to prevent Americans from owning managed vehicles from foreign jurisdictions.
So what about the notorious Nixon?
In 1970, Richard Nixon signed into place the Bank Secrecy Act, and American expats had to report all foreign bank accounts that aggregate to over $10,000 US. They have subsequently never increased this amount to meet inflation growth. If you haven't provided these documents, they can lead towards large fines. All the while, no tax is ever owed on these declarations to the Treasury Department. Until FATCA, Nixon and all subsequent presidents had no means to police the foreign banks and to enforce the rules.
For the sake of pinning the blame for the frustrations behind being an American expat, we blame Abraham Lincoln.
Lincoln may have abolished slavery in the United States, but made any American that moved out of the country de facto slaves, of which no other country other than Eritrea follows the logic, and even Canada has banned them from being able to do so. Abraham Lincoln introduced citizens-based taxation with the first income tax signed on August 5th, 1861, and was a measly 3% of income to help fund the North in the Civil War efforts. All of the above culminated in what is now known as the FATCA Accords established by Barack Obama. This law was designed to increase the compliance of U.S. taxpayers that had reporting requirements for financial accounts that were held in foreign jurisdictions. To ensure compliance throughout the chain, the new framework imposed legislation onto both the individual and the financial institutions that service the U.S. persons. This led to the stricter reporting standards and larger penalties being imposed for noncompliance. With the newfound power in place, the FATCA Accords essentially became the international policing force for U.S. persons with foreign accounts and assets. With over 113 countries having signed up to comply with the U.S. FATCA rules, and an additional 200,000 plus institutions having registered with the IRS.
Welcome, everybody, I would like to welcome every single person for joining this webinar. And today we're just going to go through a quick tutorial of how our new robo-advisor DF Direct works, and go over what things to avoid and what things you need to know. But I want to make sure that this is an interactive session. Please feel free to ask any questions inside of the Q&A or inside of the chat feature. Ruben is here, and he will be answering any of those questions or bringing them up to interrupt me, so that we can make this as tailored to your needs as possible. So we'll go straight into it. As the video implied, basically, as an American expat here in the UK, in Europe, or any place else around the world, we need to make sure that we comply with FATCA. FATCA has been around now, so there's plenty of information, but it's basically just a sharing agreement between the United States and many other countries. So it means if you don't declare it yourself, you're going to most likely get caught. Now, it doesn't matter if you're an American and have a dual citizenship with another country. If you have multiple passports, you are a U.S. citizen for tax purposes. It doesn't matter if you're a U.S. resident and another tax holder, green card holder, or anything of the such. Just make sure that if it affects you, that you pay close attention to the things not to do that will make things problematic. As the video implied, if we ever have 10,000 US dollars, it's never been adjusted for inflation, so it's quite low. Accumulated across all of your non-US bank accounts, you will have to disclose all of them. Don't be afraid of this. It's better to over-declare than it is to under-declare, because essentially this is going to the Treasury, not the IRS. Therefore, there's no tax associated with this, but they can have frothy fines if you don't report things. There's a million questions regarding these types of things. The most important thing is to declare it on an annual basis with your taxes. And again, over-declare, don't under-declare. If you're involved in companies, charities, or anything else where you have access to the banking details, those should be documented on there as well. Second thing I really want you to pay attention to is what are called passive foreign investment companies. Passive foreign investment companies, for the most part, are any time that you have managed funds that are managed outside of the United States. It doesn't matter if you're buying an exchange-traded fund of, say, the S&P 500. If it is traded on the London Stock Exchange or the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, that would be considered a PFIC. So make sure if you're buying something that is going to have a wrapper component to it, that you're buying it in the United States. There are exclusions to this. For example, most countries, their retirement vehicles, their pensions will be excluded from being considered a PFIC for certain purposes, but that is also going to be up to your tax accountant to think of. So for the most part, we want to make our investments in the United States, or we want you to buy them in individual securities, an individual stock or an individual bond, completely fine from a PFIC regulation vantage point. But if you're going to buy an ETF or a managed fund, also known as UCITS, you want it to be done in the United States. And there's several reasons why. First one, avoids PFICs. Second one, if you have a US brokerage account, you're going to get a 1099. I've only seen a couple institutions that issue them outside of the United States. And I might make an exception there, but they're normally a little bit more expensive. Hence, number 5, the fees are cheaper by buying in the United States, and that's where we'd recommend it. Compliance. If we have an account, if we have our investment account in the US, we don't have to do an FBAR disclosure on it on an annual basis. So that's really great news. And the last one, not to fearmonger, but we know what the safety aspects are in the United States. American institutions have been failing for a long, long time. SIPC, FDIC protection is really handy to know about of how the institution would behave if it were to potentially fail and what your safety limits are. Whereas different countries are all going to have different rules surrounding that. And some of those have been extremely unattractive when it comes to the actual consumer. So those are our 5 reasons that we're going to say, whether you work with us or somebody else, you should actually keep your investment account in the States, maybe have your banking account, one in the States and one in the country where you're a resident, but that depends on your situation. Now, there's going to be one major important aspect that you want to pay attention to that's going to be different from your portfolio being for you in the United States and retiring in the States. And that's whether the US dollar is going to be a positive or a negative for you. Now, I'm going to send you these slides thereafter, or Ruben's going to send them to you. Essentially, you can go through the details. The importance in these next 3 slides is that since the gold standard was repealed, every 10 to 15 years, we had a shift from a bullish US dollar to a bearish US dollar. Now, the problem is that we've had a long period of time since 2007 where essentially the US dollar has been in a bullish territory. It's been increasing to most global currencies. And that means that thinking on a US-centric manner has been positive for us. We're not saying that has to fall apart today or tomorrow, but one day the strong dollar will come to an end and we'll go through a period of having a weak dollar. And that's always the case because basically it's a faster way to growth. And that's where we might need to think about things on a more localized vantage point for certain goals. If you have short-term goals, you might need to look at having local currencies inside of there. You can find videos that we've done in the past where we talk about the Big Mac Index, which is just a more fun way of talking about the purchasing price index or what the value of different currencies are. But the important takeaway of it is that there are only really four overvalued currencies in the world: Switzerland, Sweden, Norway, and the United States. All the rest are weakening themselves on purpose. And therefore, there's more breadth and more room for those other currencies to recover instead of the US. Now, there are 5 ways that you can go ahead and minimize your currency risk. Future contract, forward contract options, and swaps are nice ways if you're buying a house next year and you might need a lump sum. And we can custom build these for you. But for the most part, if you're talking about your retirement in the long term, natural hedges are going to be a much better way of looking at this. And what a natural hedge is simplistically, if the world, the MSCI index is, say, 55, 60% US companies, you might decide to have a little less of that exposure and a little bit more exposure to companies and debt predominantly in the country that you're resident in, so that you minimize that currency risk. It's a great way of modeling out and minimizing risk over the course of time, and to where we think that long haul, your fixed income should be in the currencies that you're living in, and your equities don't have to be so much, but that gets you to a natural currency modeling. Now, that's where our portfolios are a little different for each of the different pieces. I want you to walk away with what questions you need to ask for any financial advisory firm. And so we've modeled them out right here. First one, are they a fiduciary? Being a fiduciary is so important because essentially a fiduciary has to sit on your side of the table. They can't be earning commissions or any other fees that they're selling off pieces. They're earning their fees directly from you. And that's where we believe that anybody in this profession should be a fiduciary. The second aspect is always important. What are the fees? How much are you going to charge? Because anything that we're charging is coming directly out of your pocket. We surveyed the major firms across the board handle American expats, and what we found was the highest was 2.8%. The lowest happens to be our robo-advisor, which is 0.5% annually on a fee basis, and the average is 1.24. So that gives you an indication, if you're needing a little bit more service, what the charging structure should be for those services. Or if you're not needing financial planning, but just need somebody to manage the assets, then DF Direct is the least expensive way to go. You want to make sure that people are SEC registered. SEC registration is the US registry. And that means that we can actually sell you US securities. Like I was going through before, I don't want you to buy things outside of the United States because you'll end up with PFICs, passive foreign investment companies, and that will make your US taxes a little bit of a nightmare. You want to make sure that they're licensed in Europe or the UK. These are important jurisdictions. And in Europe, basically, if you're licensed in one country, you're able to passport throughout all the rest. Naturally, the UK has a little bit different structure with as Brexit has happened. We're registered in both through our partner company, and I'll show you how to get those details later. And then naturally, does a company sell PFICs? If they're selling PFICs, they're not acting as a fiduciary. Some companies do this on certain parameters of how to do the tax declarations on PFICs. I would have a long conversation with your tax accountant before you purchase any of those types of structures, like Assurance Vie in France, just on tax limitations when you die. And then on the US side of things, you can actually look up whether they have any past regulatory issues. So these are the questions that you want to look at when you're looking at different advisory firms. You want to look at what portfolios they have to offer. We offer 6 different risk categories over on the right-hand side, from conservative for short-term investment needs all the way up to aggressive growth. We offer them in US securities, Europe, and the UK. Now, the importance of having these is that you should be determining where you're going to need the funds. So if you're in Europe now or the UK now, but you're going to retire in the US, your retirement funds should be in the US models. Whereas if you're in the UK now and you're unsure of where you're going to end up, base it on where you currently are, the UK. So 18 different portfolios to choose from, but it's going to pre-select it when you actually go through our website on dfdirect.com, so you don't have to worry about siphoning through all the different portfolios. A couple resources you want to really know about American citizens abroad. I'm on their advocacy group, and essentially they are trying to help be lobbyists for us to Congress and to the US government. So if you're looking for ways to get involved and to shape how American expats are able to deal with things, a great group, at least get on their distribution list or think about joining. We have our full American expat guide. If you drop an email to Ruben, he'll drop you a copy of the expat guide. It's completely free, and it's a great resource of all the different questions that you want to ask for any firm that's helping you with your taxes or your investments. I keep telling you, I don't like PFICs. Google it, or here's a nice resource from an outside tax firm. We're not tax advisors. They're all going to be negative about it because of all the ramifications. And if you're looking for a good tax advisor, American Overseas is a great organization to talk to that would be able to help you find a local tax representative that helps on American expat issues. There's also Broker Check, which is run on the US side of things to help you determine which firms are qualified to be giving other advice. On the IRS website, you'll definitely want to check out the double taxation agreement between your country and the United States. Many countries have these, and they're completely different from country to country. It doesn't mean you get to avoid tax. It just means that they're going to try to minimize it in certain regards. They're not always the easiest to interpret, but they have interpretations on there to try to give some ease. The UK and Canada have great ones with the United States, to where many Americans in the UK actually can benefit from having dual citizenship. Other countries, it might be better to retire there, but not necessarily to work there, or the likes, but I won't go through them all. That is a wonderful resource of a good starting point. And if you're thinking you want to make sure that other people don't have these problems of citizens-based taxation, essentially there is the residency-based taxation coalition, which we're part of, and ACA is part of as well. You should check it out for different announcements that are going on over there. That is the quick aspect of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it over to Ruben to take you through how easy it is to set up the website.
Hello, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. So as you can see on your screen here, this is our DF Direct homepage. There's an abundance of helpful information, FAQs, blogs, why DF Direct, and the first and most important button is the Get Started. So if you click there, then it will take you through the process. essentially, the first few steps is the platform trying to get an understanding of where you are right now, where you intend on or think you will intend on being in the future, what your goals are, your objectives, and it'll present some opportunities and funds to consider from there. So we'll go through it as an example, and after the meeting, you're most welcome to reach out to myself and we can share the screen, go through the process for you personally and get you set up. So let's go. I live in the UK at the moment. I would like to save for retirement. Let's go long term. I need my money right now. Not important. I'm pretty experienced with investing, and I'd like to maximize my long-term growth, given I've got a number of years until I intend on retiring. My email address, financial.com. And now the engine is thinking about what options to present based on the information that we've plugged in, and it will give me one or a few options of portfolios to consider. So here we have the aggressive growth, which, as we talked about earlier, is the one that will likely have the highest highs, but may come with the greatest level of fluctuation, or alternatively to consider the growth portfolio. So similar philosophies, but a slightly wound back approach with respect to a mixture of equities and bonds. So I want to just have a retirement account. I want a traditional IRA. And then you can plug in your details here. So essentially, once you plug in these details, then we can either assist if you've got an individual account, then you can fund it yourself. Alternatively, if you've got an IRA with another provider, then we can facilitate that transfer and go from there to funding the account, and you'll be all set up. So as you can see, it's as quick and as simple as that. And like I mentioned, I'm more than happy to jump on a call with you or to walk you through the process as well with onboarding. But yeah, hope that's been a helpful insight, and my email is always open if you have any questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Ruben. That shows you how easy it is to open an account. Rowan has this wonderful question. If I have multiple goals like generating capital for a house purchase within 10 years and saving for retirement in 40 years, how do I apply this into DF Direct? That is a great question. What you would do is you'd first set the first account up, just like Ruben showed us, and you would pick one of those goals. So let's say it be retirement, and you'd set up that account. Now, when you're inside of the portal, it will ask you if you would like to open up subsequent accounts, and you can apply a different goal to each one of those accounts. So you don't have to go through that front end, and they're all going to be on the same dashboard. So that's the ease of it. You also might decide that you might have multiple accounts for retirement. You might have a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, and an individual account. You can go ahead and replicate those in there, and then another individual account for the house purchase that would have a lower risk profile. So essentially, it's as easy as that. If you have any complexities and it's not intuitive, please let us know. We want that feedback from you. That is exactly what Ruben is there for. He'll also be able to set up a call for you to walk you through. We've got a question of whether we're recording this. We are recording this, and we will put it on YouTube, and we'll send it out to everyone. We also have over 140 videos on the Dunhill Financial Library, which includes conversations with everything from mortgage brokers to tax accountants and the likes. So it can give you a lot of grasp of information, and we have several country playlists on there, like Italy, France, the United Kingdom, and Belgium. So you get to select something that might be more helpful there. Do we have any other questions that people might have? if we don't have any more questions, we can wrap up just a little bit early. Ruben's posted up his email address, ruben@dfdirect.com, right there on the website. And if you have any questions, comments, positive, negative, we want to improve this service. It's a newer service. It's been something that's been on our list for a long time, to be able to make sure everybody has access to the American markets as an American expat. Remember, there's no minimums. You can start out your account with any amount that you could see, and it's low cost with no commitment. So there's no upfront fees, no fees to close the account. Basically, you just rent our services as you see fit. At any time, if you do need financial planning assistance, Ruben would be able to introduce you over to one of our financial planners on our team, to help you in your situation. It's not part of the DF Direct services, but it's part of our sister company, Dunhill Financial, and we'd be more than happy to help. But unless you have any other questions, we will let you get back to your day, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you again for joining.